we're going to talk about what's been happening with News UK, some of the things that you're now doing, and the new partnership that you've got between you. Dave, so the Pulse, the communications group that you have with WPP, was launched earlier on this year. Why did you decide that that was important?
I think there's a number of things that we've looked at over the years. I mean, we've had traditional structures, where we've used outside agencies, pick and choose, put bits and pieces together. But I think we're moving much more into the world where we want people to be as invested in our products as we are. And I think you can only do that by investing a lot of trust in a partner, putting together. They go out and get the best bits that you need to support our brands as they're becoming wider. I mean, we used to be newspapers, pure and simple. That was it. That was all we did. Now we're newspapers, we're websites, we're video creators, we're bookmakers. It just goes on and on and on. So you need to have a creative team in the building who are there 24/7 working on the various bits and pieces. You need to market that.
And how many people have you got in the building for as part of this partnership?
Well, it flexes.
Okay.
And I think that's the beauty of it, is that you can bring in, you can add or subtract as necessary. So if you don't actually have that particular skill, I'll go and ring Johnny up, and the cavalry will come charging in. Is that not the idea?
Yeah. So Johnny, what's it been like for you to? Did you put this all together? Did you lead the charge from WPP?
Well, we did, but it was David and his team, that instigated it. But I think it's interesting in the context of partnerships, because if you look at agencies of all types, at their best, they've always had wonderful partnerships with their clients. When I first came into agency world at Ogilvy, it was one of the things that David Ogilvy and that agency had prided itself on, and lots of great agencies since, PBH or whatever, where you look at relationships like Audi or Shell with Ogilvy, or et cetera, we go, these relationships last years and years and years. And I think those were fine in static environments when most of the stuff that a marketing department did, or a big chunk of it, was advertising or advertising and media. And that's what the agency provided, so you could build those long-term partnerships. As David said, and I think this is a challenge across all agencies now, is the things that agencies do in the specific channel brands that they've grown up in are no longer relevant, I don't think, by themselves to cover a full partnership with a client. So, some of our agencies are involved, other agencies from WPP with specialisms we haven't got are involved. And then I think it's about trying to find a way of putting that together that can be as nimble as the client needs it to be. But also, crucially, I think, and I think one bottom line is really important to this, makes the organisation, the partnership, all work together, so that the people there don't feel like they're assembled from 5 different agencies who are all competing to try and impress the client more and get more of their spend into whatever discipline it is that they emanated from, but rather to say, how do we take people that started in media or digital or technology or whatever and blend them together in teams? And I think that it's easy to say and it's harder to do, but I think as an industry, if we don't do it, we're in big trouble as agencies. And I think so far it's taken brave clients, to do it. But I feel like, and I don't know, it'd be interesting to see what the audience think or others think, it feels like this is a trend. You saw in the McDonald's pitch last week, Omnicom saying we've got to bring all these people together, and we've got to bring them together with a single bottom line, and they've now have the challenge of making that work, as we've indeed had. It's not without its bumps in the road. And the people that you bring to the party can be, interestingly, they brought Google and Facebook to the party. And I think, interestingly, when David's, developing his organisation to be partners with media agencies and other agencies outside of us, I think you're going to find that these partnerships will include, newspaper brands, digital brands, etc., in order to thrive in the future.
Yeah. How does the finances work, Dave?
I
don't want to. I can ask.
Well, funnily enough, I've got it here. No, it works for us. I mean, we have to look at it from the, is it economically feasible? Are we better off as a result of it? And I think we are. So I think it's more efficient. We get more bang from our buck, and I think we have a team that is more invested in our future. And as you know, as Johnny says, we're trying to do something for the long term here. We haven't been at this for a huge amount of time, but I would hope that as it grows, people get used to the way that we work. We expand on what we've already started, and that when you get sort of 2-3 years down the line, it is a much better functioning engine. And you know, you've got the efficiencies out of it from a cost basis as well.
And just to give us an idea of the size, how much are you producing? What's the...
Oh, I think, well, because of the, I mean, I think this is the other thing, which is not everybody obviously has, I mean, I think over time everybody will move to these sorts of models, but I think interestingly, it's those companies that are challenged by their own environments, which, you know, the traditional newspaper industry has been, but also that are having to move super fast. You know, so some FMCG companies are now suddenly looking at the price of television going, oh shit, and starting to look at things differently. But this isn't a wave that's hit them hard yet, like it's hit retail, like it's hit newspapers, and to an extent like it's hit banking. So I don't think it's a surprise that as you look at a retailer like McDonald's or, you know, newspaper say, Jesus, we really need to reinvent things here, because David's reinventing his business anyway. So he has to reinvent his business. So he's got a culture of people that are trying to reinvent their business, and the strong brands they've had into areas like gaming and betting and whatever, away from just pure print sales. So we as an industry, I think, are having to reinvent, you know, smart communications people, from thinking I make adverts or DM packs or apps to thinking we need to come together in a way that works for the client. I think we're producing something like, Christian's better than this on me, but I think, you know, huge volumes, particularly if you look across The Sun, you know, Unruly, you know, all the different assets that we've got there. I think something like 15,000 pieces of communication in a busy month. Right. Just because the speed of, I mean, we were talking about the Olympics for these guys this summer, but, you know, the Times was, I think, 15-20% up during what was probably, you know, the most active political period in decades. Yeah. So just in terms of what was being produced by the Times and for the Sun in a news environment that was just so fast moving.
It's quite a good example of that, actually, because we, Johnny and Co put together a digital outdoor campaign for the Sun, for which you saw up there, the tournamental thing for the European Championships. And as England hugely disappointingly failed to shine in that tournament, we were able to use that inventory and, using the Pulse team, turn it round into Times Brexit material. So you say, right, okay, England are out, thanks very much. And then turn it into the Times campaign. Yeah. So, and I think that sort of nimbleness is a result of some of the stuff that we've been able to do. The other thing that it brings us, and having that sort of scale of team in-house, is it allows you to have different conversations. It allows more people to come into the mix, so the different clients who perhaps wouldn't have considered the Times of the Sun. Yeah. And they come in, they see Johnny's team in action. We have a conversation with them at the same time. You know, so it does allow, there are more touch points. Yeah.
So then Tabcorp comes in the middle of this as well as a joint partnership. How does that work? And how does it feel for you being part of a big organisation linked into another organisation effectively as a startup?
Yeah, it's a partnership that works. First of all, the premise for doing it, I think people like to think about betting and gaming as...
Yeah, do you want to just tell everyone what it is for those that don't know what your products are?
Tabcorp is the big monopoly. If you've been to Australia, the tabs are in every pub, and it's the big. It used to be the monopoly betting provider in Australia, but it's obviously maintained within Australia, and they're looking to expand and show that they can do something more than Australia. And so one of these, they don't have a brand in the UK. They need someone with a mouthpiece. But that's what's made sense, putting those two together. But as I was trying to say about betting and gaming being something that people see as an easy way to monetize web traffic or eyeballs, it's really, betting is about monetizing opinion, and it always has been. So we need somebody. If somebody's got an opinion, that's where the betting comes from. And so putting the betting next to the opinion formers, and having been, you know, a pure bookmaker in the past, you want to be as close as you can to when that customer has the opinion or forms that opinion. And this is where the kind of, with the tie-up with News Corps, so we can
Right.
be right involved in, as they're forming that opinion, being that single click away, that step right embedded in the content. Because then, we're not going to, as Sun bets, in a very crowded market, we're not going to out William Hill. We're not going to out bet 365, but we can make a Sun product that sits absolutely within your experience of reading through the form, getting the opinion, and then having a bet there and then.
So are you having to take effectively what the brand is and the customer is and
Yeah.
then create something that would be right for them?
Yeah, and making sure that it fits in part of that flow, so it doesn't feel like an advert. It feels that I've read that story about Jack Wilshere and coming back from injury. I've got the set of prices next to how many games will he play? Will he play more than 50% of the season? Will he play for England? All that stuff. So it adds to the thing that you're reading. It gives it gives you some kind of concept of how likely it is. So it's even if you're not betting, it's something that's interesting for people to read that aren't interested in having a bet, but they can still see that he's an outsider to play more than 50% of his matches. It does fit together in that sense, and obviously it monetizes the traffic, which is something that as people move online away from the printed media, and they've still got all the eyeballs. What can you do that's got no logistical delivery time and stuff like that? Betting and gaming has always been one of those things.
Yeah. I had the privilege to be on your boat at Cannes. Obviously, we'd take that, and you were there. But there was a little bit of logo and flags being taken up and taken down, and a few bits of huffing and puffing, only little tiny bit between the three businesses that were on that boat, which for me sort of epitomises some of the issues that you have as a partnership. Talk to me about the stuff that's hard. That's been a struggle to get to happen.
What you're referring to is the Wall Street Journal and their outrageous behaviour.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with that.
Obviously, it wasn't you two at all. It was just the Wall Street Journal.
I think if I can talk about the TAB partnership, which is probably the more challenging because it is a partner from the other side of the world in an industry that is completely different to ours. And from our point of view, Jamie's very eloquently explained why it was interesting for TAB. For us, it was we wanted to get into the space. Sun Bingo was already very successful, but you have to find a partner who needs it as much as you do. And that was what we found with TAB. And somebody said to me, why don't you do it with Ladbrokes? Well, you're always going to be second place. So that was really important. But what is difficult from the other side of the world, despite the fact that they speak English, it's a different kind of English. And they also speak it at a different time of day.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of sort of 8 o'clock in the morning phone calls and 11 o'clock at night phone calls and that sort of thing. So there are some logistical things about it. One of the things we found out sort of quite close to launch, that each way means something different in Australia to what it means here.
Okay.
So,
was that almost an expensive,
almost
problem?
an expensive, exactly that. And so it's been. I think what we've had to. You've got to be pragmatic with a partnership. You've got to accept that things aren't going to go smoothly, but you've got to take a long-term view on it. You've got to work together to get these things right, iron them out, and we've learned a huge amount from this process. A lot of things I would have changed, I would have done slightly differently, but we are, I think Jamie will say, we are working through it, and it is coming together nicely. And I think that in a couple of years' time we'll have a real success story in our hands.
Anything to add?
No, I think it's true. I think what we absolutely need to nail is this Sun tone of voice, and that we are the Sun, and when you can bet through the Sun rather than try and be an another bookmaker, a 188 bet or whatever. So that's as that comes together and we really pull together on that, that's where the wins are going to come.